Welcome to Cybersecurity Risk and Financial Sector Best Practices. This workshop will discuss the state's efforts to promote cybersecurity best practices necessary to keep individuals and their data safe when connected to the internet. Our speaker for this workshop is Michael Geraghty. Mr. Geraghty is the state's Chief Information Security Officer and the first Director of New Jersey Cybersecurity and Integration Cell, who brings a wealth of public and private sector experience to his new role. I would like to thank Mr. Geraghty for being here today, and please make sure to scan your badge for CEU credits. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Just quick show of hands. How many are responsible for cybersecurity in their organization? Everybody should be raising their hand because everybody's responsible for cybersecurity. Whether you're a CFO or a financial officer or anything else in the finance department, you and everybody else within the township, within the government organization has that responsibility. So I'm Mike Geraghty. I'm the director of the NJKIC, the New Jersey Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Cell. I'll introduce what we do in a little bit. Essentially, we're located at the Regional Operations Intelligence Center on the campus of the State Police in West Trenton, New Jersey. So that ROC, the Regional Operations Intelligence Center, is the fusion center for New Jersey. So within that fusion center, it's not only Homeland Security, where I report into, it's also the State Police, the Office of Information Technology, the FBI, the DEA, the Secret Service, TSA, and all of us sharing information not only about cyber threats and cyber crimes, but also about all the other threats and hazards to New Jersey. So our job there is to share information so we don't have another 9/11 like we had, in 2001, but also to make sure that we don't have a 9/11 as it relates to cybersecurity. So over the past year or so, you've seen headlines all over the place. Atlanta was hit with ransomware not too long ago. It shut down the city for months and months and months. They couldn't process payroll. They couldn't accept payments for traffic tickets. They couldn't do anything. They actually had to cancel their budget address that they're statutorily required to have because they couldn't get their systems up and running. Latest tally, it cost them about $2.6 million. Allentown City, which is up in Pennsylvania, they got hit with a virus just a couple months ago as well, cost them over $1 million. And you can see some of the other ones. Baltimore City's 911 system, Newark City, not to pick on anybody here, Pennsylvania State Democrats. There's not a day that goes by that you can't read about somebody else being victimized by cyber criminals and the whatnot. So this responsibility, even though it may fall or you think it falls within the IT department, the chaos that it causes and the outcomes and the effects that it has is really going to impact your budget, and it's going to impact your ability to operate. They're going to have material, effects on everything that a township does or any organization does. I don't know if anybody has 2.6 million, or if in the case of like Target and Home Depot, $150 million. A lot of us in here probably have cyber insurance. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But if you are not doing all the right things that you said you were doing when you filled out the application for cyber insurance, is that actually going to cover? Are they going to deny your claim? So some things to think about. So as I mentioned, we're the state's clearinghouse, state's one-stop shop for cybersecurity information sharing, threat intelligence, best practices, and incident response for the state of New Jersey. We were created in May of 2015 by an executive order. And that executive order came out of the fact that this state feels that cybersecurity is so important within the state, to the economy, to the health and welfare of its citizens, that we're the first state in the nation to have a state-level information sharing and analysis analysis organization, which is the NJ-KIC. We've been cited as a model for all the other states across the country for the way that we approach cybersecurity, what we're doing. Now, we're relatively new. We're 3 years old, so we don't have the maturity. We act like a startup. We don't act like a state government organization, and it's pretty neat to see. That fusion center environment with OIT and the state police and OHSP, it's a big room just like this, where lots of stuff is going on, but it allows us to share information. So our job is to collaborate with both the public and private sectors. It's not only state government that we provide services to, it's everyone. And if there's anything that you get out of this is that the NJ-KIC is really there to help you. It's a cliche, we're from the government, we're here to help, but that is exactly what we were set up to do. Homeland security, when you think about it, is terrorism and all those counterterrorism type things. But where we see our biggest impact is being able to help small and medium businesses as well as small and medium government organizations. Big businesses, the Prudentials, the Verizons, the AT&Ts, they're going to have all sorts of resources for cybersecurity. We're not going to do anything for them. In fact, they could do things for us. But smaller businesses and smaller government organizations where one person does 16 different jobs, those are the ones where we want to augment your cybersecurity program. We want to help you out and manage the risk environment there. All right, so some of the things that we're seeing, and you saw all the cases over the news reports over the past year or so. But general threat trends, the external environment, the threat environment is increasing, and it continues to increase. More people coming online, more things coming online. People that never used computers before, our parents, my parents' age and things like that. Now kids, you see them at every restaurant using iPads when they're 2 and 3 to pacify them instead of the coloring books. They grow up with the technology. Whether they go in the right direction or the bad direction, they may become threats. So when we think about threats, we always hear about the Russian hackers and the Chinese hackers, but we don't think about street gangs as threats in cybersecurity. But I can tell you that street gangs are embracing cybercrime. And the reason being is because doing drug dealing, doing prostitution, doing drive-by shootings, and strong arm robberies, the rewards there are small. The risks are very high. There's a good likelihood you're going to eventually be caught and put in jail for a long time. However, in doing cybercrime, identity theft, credit card fraud, all these things that we see, the chances of getting caught are small, and the risk and the rewards are very high. So you can send out a phishing email to 1 million people with one click of a button, doesn't cost you anything, and I guarantee you at least 8% of the people are going to click on those. And that's just based on studies and what we see. So credential compromise is the key to the kingdom. Why hack into systems? Why go through all that trouble when I can get you to give me your password? So I can send you an email, a phishing email if you like, saying you got to log into the system or you're going to lose access, all these different ways of doing this. Once I have your credentials, I can now log in as you and carry out those crimes that I want to do. So you become the target, not necessarily the systems or networks that you have. Right? Phishing email is the #1 threat vector for all cyber crimes that are out there. So having a strong security awareness program, making sure you have training on how to spot phishing emails. This is something that we do all the time in state government, where we send out monthly bulletins and we have phishing simulation programs and the like. The second most common threat vector are unpatched vulnerabilities. So that's a system exposed to the public internet that has a vulnerability that is well known, at least 30 days old, for which there are patches that the IT department should have applied, okay, that haven't been applied. And all it takes is somebody to scan networks, and I'll show you some slides in a bit, where they can identify you, see that you have an opening, and now you're the victim. So in the case of cybersecurity, it's like being in the woods and a bear comes to attack you, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be better than your neighbor's cybersecurity program because they're going to be the victim. So you just have to be a little faster than your wife or husband or whatever. All right. So we've got vulnerabilities, distributed denial of service attacks. We don't see this against too many government organizations, but these are large-scale attacks that don't allow people to visit your website, don't allow you to use the phones in the office because that complete busy ring and stuff. So denial of service. Crimeware, ransomware is increasing. Over the past year or so, we've had over 20 municipalities within the state of New Jersey report to us, in which we responded to, that have been victims of ransomware. In some cases, it was so bad that they lost data for 2 years. Of course, they didn't back up the data. They didn't have any contingency plan and those types of things. But these are real impacts that are going to cost government organizations all sorts of money if it's not addressed up front, regardless of what the cyber insurance is. Because if you have a cyber insurance policy, you probably have a high deductible as well. And a lot of these things are going to come in under that high deductible. At the state, I think we have 20 million as our insurance coverage. 2.5 million is the deductible. And you think about it, to get that far, we've got to do a lot of work and stuff like that. As I said before, good cyber hygiene will mitigate a lot of the risk, whether it's just good password management, not clicking on links, not visiting sites, just doing things, common sense approaches to cybersecurity, patching systems when you know they have to be patched. You do that, and you become less and less likely of a target, and your attack surface is a lot smaller. And again, as the bear in the woods, your neighbor who's not that good is going to be the victim. So one of the things that we do at the NJ KIC is we monitor the Garden State Network, and our job is to protect that. The Garden State Network is the network that provides all the network services to all the different departments and agencies within the executive branch and the judiciary. It's also the network that provides network services to the Turnpike Authority, New Jersey Transit, the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority, and others. And every municipality, county government agency, and a lot of other government organizations are part of this Garden State Network. So if you were coming down here and you got stopped by a police officer and they ran your driver's license, they're going to make a connection into the Garden State Network on a monthly basis. And this is just over a month, is what the attacks look like that we see in the NJ KIC. So it's about 160 million attacks in a month and a half. These are real attacks. 11 million coming from just the United States, another 7.2 million coming from Russia. We know this because we're blocking them. So these are the things that we block. The same attacks that they're doing against us, they're doing against every other network. It's not necessarily targeted to state government networks. In a lot of cases, it's indiscriminate. You have an IP address connected to the public internet, you're being attacked, whether that's your cable modem at home, whether that's your government office or whatnot. So our job is to protect this. Our job is to take this information and also share it with others. What are the different techniques and tactics that people are using to attack us? Because we want to make sure that you know about it so you can protect yourselves, similar to how we're protecting our network. Regardless of all the different ways that we get attacked, and in financial officers' organizations, lots of standards, CPA standards and the like, and there's control standards, and if you do credit card, there's PCI, and there's all sorts of frameworks for cybersecurity. We boil it down to 3 simple things. Think like a criminal, because anytime you get attacked, the attacker needs these 3 things. They need the motivation, and the motivation 90% of the time is going to be financial. Just like any other crime, they're going to hack in there for financial gain. Ransomware is a quick way to do that. Viruses, phishing emails, business email compromises, those things that we see over and over are for financial gain. So the motivation is typically financial gain. The means to do it. Not everybody with a hoodie is a super hacker. but they also know not everybody in a government organization is a super cybersecurity person either. So when they send you that phishing email, they're depending on our human nature to trust an email that comes in, to open it and click on a link or download an attachment and the like. So the means, is obviously there. If you go on YouTube, you can find all sorts of videos on how to hack into just about anything. So that means is out there and allows them to do more. And then the opportunity. The opportunity is what we provide them. The opportunity in not training our staffs on how to detect a phishing email, the opportunity in not training our staffs on what to do when they see something suspicious. Is the adage, see something, say something. That applies to cybersecurity just like it does to suspicious packages and bags at railway stations and airports. So that see something, say something. The opportunity we provide when we don't patch our systems, the opportunity we provide when we just don't do common sense cyber hygiene things. So those opportunities are what we're providing. We can't necessarily control the attacker. That threat is always going to be there. We can't necessarily control their motivation, but we can control the opportunity that we provide them to hack into us. So in any attack, just like any crime that's happening in the real world, in the physical world, there's a bunch of stages to that attack. So if I was to rob a bank here in Atlantic City, I would probably do a lot of reconnaissance on the bank. I'd make sure, I knew when the guards are going in and out, when the armored car was showing up, whether there were police cars that were circling the block, what my escape route would be, all these different things, who's coming and going, so that I would know how to plan my attack. Online, reconnaissance happens all the time. Some of it is simply scanning networks, but in other ways, the reconnaissance is even more mundane. Going to LinkedIn and looking up who the CFO is, looking up who the CEO of an organization is, or who a network administrator is, because they're the ones that are going to be targeted for those phishing emails, the business email compromises, and those types of things. Now, I always say, and I've been doing this for quite some time, phishing emails, if you send a subpoena to a lawyer in the Attorney General's office or any law department, they will open it. If you send something to HR being a sexual harassment complaint, they will open it. If you send something to a police department saying there's a crime, they will open it. So there are people that are more likely to open things, customer service representatives, because that's their job, is to respond to the public. So they're naturally good victims. Others in security and other areas that are not necessarily going to open emails, the worst person you can send an email to, or I guess, the worst person a bad actor can send an email to get them to open it is who? It's the IT department, because they don't open anyone's emails. That was a joke. Some people laugh, okay? You send a request to IT and they don't. Any IT people that I'm insulting? Get over it. So the weaponization is the next thing. Sending that email with the attachment, with the link to a bad actor site. The delivery, obviously, is via email in most cases. The exploit occurs. So you open the email, you click on the link. What happens is you connect to a website. As you connect to that website, the bad actor is downloading tools to your computer that he's going to use to exploit you even further. So the exploit happens, the compromise occurs, command and control, which means they put those tools on there so they can get in anytime that they want, not just when you open that email, but now they've got a tunnel into your network that you can't even see. And then the exfiltration happens. But the exfiltration, the taking of credit card numbers, social security numbers, personnel records, and the like, doesn't happen right away. It may take months and months and months. And the reason being is when somebody gets into your network, they don't know where your confidential information is. They don't know where the sensitive information is. It's going to take them a while to find it. Similar to if you were to walk into the Golden Nugget here and you had a blindfold on, it would take you a while to find where this room is. they're going to spend a lot of time in your network. So when you read in the papers that they were hacked in June but didn't discover it until September, it's usually at the time the data is exfiltrated that they're discovered, not when they hack into the network. It's rare that people catch them when they're hacking in. Right. So some of the defenses, some of the safeguards, you can have the best defenses in the world. You know, all sorts of good cyber hygiene, antivirus, firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, but you're still likely to be a victim, whether that's by an external source or by an internal employee or bad actor as well. Robert Mueller, and I think we heard his name in the news lately. He was the former director of the FBI. And he gave a speech back in 2012 saying that there's two types of companies: those that know they've been hacked and those that have been hacked and don't know. And I feel the same way. When I came on as the CISO for the state of New Jersey, the first thing I wanted to do was a compromise assessment. I wanted to find out what our defenses were, what our protections were, and whether they could be breached. Sure enough, not only did I find that they could breach them, but they had been breached, okay? And so you've probably been breached. There's probably been people in your network. There's probably, people that have gained unauthorized access to things. That's going to happen. So what's really, really important is how you respond to it. If you go back to the case of Target, they said one thing one day, another thing the next day, and then another thing the third day, and the fourth day it was a different story, and nobody could trust them. So this response plan also includes communications. How are you going to communicate to your citizens, okay, in your jurisdiction? How are you going to communicate to the employees? How are you, all these different things. It's not just technical issues, communications plans, breach response. Are you going to set up credit card monitoring for all the victims? And how are you going to determine who those victims are? So lots of that goes into the response plan. So developing a response plan and then practicing it is really important. One of the things that we used to do every Friday morning, 11 o'clock, we would have an incident response exercise. So that's something, because when you do get hacked or you do get breached, it's kind of like you can't be handing out business cards then. You've got to know who you're working with, because it takes a coordinated effort to do it really well. So the incident response is important. Continuing on, this is Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP, is a protocol in Windows computer systems that allows system administrators or others to remotely connect to another Windows system. A couple of years ago, there was the WannaCry attack against all sorts of systems around the world. There was Petya, no Petya, and stuff like that. So what we did is we wanted to go out and see who would be the likely victims in the state of New Jersey. RDP allows you to log in just like you would in Windows, but to a remote computer. So what remote computers were out there that we could log into if we wanted to? And as you can see, this is broken down by zip code. And you can see in just about every zip code in the state of New Jersey, there are vulnerable systems that are exposed to the public internet that bad actors could log into. So these are those victims. These are the slow people in the woods with the bear. Some of them are municipalities. Some of them are universities. A lot of them are going to be tech companies that provide services such as Verizon. So these are home computers, Optimum Online, home computers, cable modems, that you're just asking people to come in. You've already opened the front door to them. We go further and we do a temporal analysis over time. So in the state of New Jersey, we also run the mail filters. So every email that comes in from an external source goes through our mail filters. And we check it for antivirus, whether it's phishing and all that. On a daily basis, there are 4 million or so inbound messages coming into state employees. Now, we only have about 67,000 state employees, so that's a lot of messages coming in for that small number. 85% of the inbound messages are determined to be either malicious, have phishing content, or are spam. So malicious being that there's malware attached or there's a malware link and stuff. So we're blocking 85% of all the email that comes in. But the one email that is really important to us that has been since February this year, hitting all sorts of organizations, not just directed at us, Allentown City and others, is something called Emotet. Emotet was a banking Trojan that was built in 2014 or so. So it was a virus, if you will, that was attached to email. Somebody would send you something, it would launch Emotet on your system, and then what it would do, it would wait for you to go to your browser and log into your banking site. So Bank America, Wells Fargo, whatever. When you did that, it would capture your credentials, your username and password, and then they would surreptitiously access your account and wipe it out. That's the way that it started. But since then, it has evolved over time. Now it not only does that, but it pulls down all sorts of other information or other tools that they can exploit, move laterally across your network, gain all sorts of things, access all sorts of files, and then exfiltrate that. But one of the other tools that Emotet does is in Outlook or whatever your email client is, it goes after all your contacts. And so now those contacts are collected, and those contacts start receiving emails purportedly from you, asking you to do things or provide them information, just like a phishing email. It looks like a trusted email, but it's not. It's somebody that spoofed it. This is happening all the time. So anybody that's being hit with a virus lately, all their contacts are coming. So even if you know the person, trust but verify. Don't just assume because it says it comes from Mike Geraghty in the state of New Jersey that it should be trusted. Always verify that. One of the things that we do, and we implement this at the state level, anytime we have an email coming in from an external source, in the subject line, we prepend the word external in all caps. This way, if somebody gets an email from me on my team, somebody on my team gets an email from me, and it says external, they know it's not coming from me. It would just be an internal email. And in the body of the message, we also put in red letters. Every email that comes in from an external source in red saying, this email came from an external source. Please use caution when clicking on links or opening attachments. And it's just a way to inform, give people, the recipients, the tools that they need to identify those phishing emails and those malicious emails and the like. Continuing on. The security ecosystem. So I asked early on, who is responsible for security? Everybody is. Doesn't matter your role. If you use a computer, if you're part of an organization, it's part of your job. Our job in the NJ KIC is to create this security ecosystem across the state of New Jersey. We want to know that you've been attacked so that we can not share the information that you've been attacked, but those tactics and protocols that people are using so that we can warn others of that. We also want to share the stuff that we have with you. So in that security ecosystem, not only the state of New Jersey and all the different municipalities and companies that we work with, there's something called the MSISAC, the Multi-State Information Sharing Analysis Center. We have a great partnership with them. On a daily basis, they send us emails saying that, here's somebody at Keene University whose credentials were compromised and were found out on the public internet. Here's somebody at this municipality, this school system, or any other government agency or academic institution in the state of New Jersey. That stuff comes to us. We also get stuff from the Secret Service, the FBI, DHS, and others, and our job is to share that information and protect the state by using that information. So one day back in March, we happened to get an email from MSISAC and saying there was 383 K through 12 email addresses that had their passwords compromised. Those passwords being compromised were out on the public internet. So 383 accounts, username and password. We got that, and what we do is we notify each of the victim schools that these happen from. But because this number was a bit higher than normal, I started asking the analysts, where'd this come from? There had to be a single system that was breached where all these come from, because it was all sorts of different schools. So what system do all these schools use? What we did is we started to look at this, and we went out on the internet, and we actually found that there was a treasure trove of usernames and passwords that were available on the public internet. 1.4 billion in total. Anybody have a LinkedIn account? Yeah, your password. How about a MySpace account? Come on, I'm not the oldest one in here. So yes, MySpace, Yahoo, Verizon Online, Verizon Wireless, I should say. How about Ashley Madison? Nobody's raising their hand. For those that are not laughing, Ashley Madison was a site where you could cheat on your wife or husband or spouse and stuff like that, and do it with other willing cheaters and stuff. So all of their usernames and passwords were posted up on the internet. So these companies and services had been hacked, and these usernames and passwords were aggregated and posted on the public internet. So that's where the 383 in the K through 12 sector went. So we started to do some analysis on it. And we wanted to see in the state of New Jersey, in state government agencies, how many people have had their passwords compromised. And what we found out is, I've got a chart, I know in the back you can't see it, but judiciary, which is the court system, the judges and the like, 418 accounts where their passwords were compromised. Health and Human Services was 403. Just about every state agency had individuals that had used their government email address to sign up to an online service, whether that was LinkedIn or whether that was MySpace or whether that was Ashley Madison or one of the hundreds of others that were out there. These weren't email addresses and passwords for state systems, but they were email addresses for other systems that these individuals in state government used. So how many use the same password for multiple systems? Okay. So there's a handful that raise their hands. The rest of you are liars. And I'm concerned that you're charged with the financial fidelity of your governments, okay? We all do it. If we had to remember a new password for every system we log into, it would be impossible unless you have a sheet that you walk around with and the like. In doing the analysis of state government workers, what was the #1 password used? This is for a new car. Anyone? Password now. It was Nicole, Nicole. So I don't know if, they had daughters named Nicole, spouses named Nicole, mistresses named Nicole, but Nicole was the #1 password used for state government workers. So our job obviously was to notify each of these to make sure that they changed their password wherever they used it, whether it was LinkedIn or MySpace and the like. But that 1.4 billion included a lot of the major companies in the state and probably a lot of you. If you had accounts on those things, it's probably out there. And if you did use passwords, you should change your passwords regularly. Not only changing your passwords regularly, but use multi-factor authentication, something that is, you know your password, okay, something but something you have, which might be your cell phone, where you get a text code to it, just like you would on a banking site. Is anyone not using that on their banking sites? Okay, that's a financial officer, because I think that just disqualifies you for that job. Okay, so these are some of the bigger companies. There was one with 62,000 employees that had their email accounts and passwords compromised. Others with 3,400 and the like. But like I said, the victims all over the place, and just about every organization in the state of New Jersey has victims in there, including you. So what do we do with that information? Obviously, you can go online if you have an account. Let's say in this case, this is a website, was a real website, and you can simply put in the username and password and say, I'm going to go to Kohl's to see if you have a Kohl's account. Click on check now, and it say, yes, this works, or no, this doesn't work, right? But to do that 1.4 billion times would take a lot of work for each one, okay? So what you can do is simply copy and paste into the form here, and then you can select whatever the retailer is or the online merchant, everyone from Amazon to Kohl's to Facebook to GameStop to Barnes & Noble, just about any site, and you can check to see if you have, if that person has an account there. If they do, Now you can order things in their name, change their address where it's shipped to, and now you can get free things. So this happens a lot. Has it happened to anybody in here? Anybody been a victim of identity theft? Nobody? So nobody was a victim in Target, Home Depot, Anthem, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. You all were. OPM. So you all were, whether you know it or not. But you should have known it because you should have received things from them. So obviously, by doing this, you can gain all sorts of good products and stuff like that. Saks Fifth Avenue, they were hit for $1 million in a 2-week period back in December just through these types of scams. If you go online and you go to Amazon and the others, they have one-click checkout. And the reason they have that one-click checkout is they know the longer it takes for you to check out, the less likely you are to complete the transaction. So they make it as easy as possible. Don't put in the CVV code on your credit card, but make it as easy as possible. So that's on the identity theft, credit card fraud side. But also what's happening over there is account takeovers, beyond account takeovers, I should say. Over in Arizona a couple of years ago, their voter registration system had been hacked. But saying it was hacked is poor. What had happened is one of the election officials had her email address and password compromised, allowing bad actors from Russia to access the Arizona voter registration system. So that's what that hacking was. But think of the usernames and passwords. We read every now and then of celebrities whose private pictures that they store in iCloud and other, on Dropbox and the like, that have been compromised. Usually it's username and password that is used to get in there. But think of it beyond that, and it's not just the identity theft. We had 418 people from the judiciary. Suppose one of them did have an account on Ashley Madison. Okay, that information can now be used for extortion. Okay, that if you don't rule in favor in this case, then we're going to share this information with your family. So this information is more than just usernames and passwords. It is, access into your whole life, whether it's be pictures or everything that you do online. We got a number of reports over the past couple of months from individuals reporting to us they got an email from somebody saying that they had their password, that they also had installed software on their computers, and they knew all the bad websites that they went to. They turned on their camera, they saw all the porn sites, and they were going to notify their husbands or wives unless they paid the bad actors some money in Bitcoin. Right? This happened, we got lots of phone calls. The passwords came from these files out there. People didn't get into your systems, but we had some really nervous people calling us saying, can they really do this? Apparently they did have those videos. So we talked a lot about the threats that are out there and the risks that are associated with the threats and the vulnerabilities, and then the consequences that happen after it. So one of the things that we're here to do in the NJ Kick is to help mitigate or manage those risks. We know, as I said before, small businesses, small and medium governments don't have the resources necessary to do that. May not have the expertise. Yeah, you have an IT guy, and that IT guy does magic. But the IT guy focuses on IT. He doesn't focus on security. So security for an IT person is typically, we'll set up a firewall, we'll put antivirus on, and all these technical things. But they don't think of it from the perspective of think like a criminal, if you will, and how they're going to get in. So one of the things that we were charged with last year is there was something that came out from the legislature and signed into law called the Water Quality Accountability Act. And it requires all the water purveyors, water companies, if you will, providers in the state of New Jersey, to submit their cybersecurity plan to the NJ Kick and to join the NJ Kick and become members and stuff to receive our services. And So we started to get some of these plans coming in. They were in different formats and had some information here, some information there, but they weren't in real good shape. So one of the things that we did, and we're launching tomorrow actually, is what we call the Cybersecurity Program Controls Assessment. This is an assessment, self-assessment, that any water purveyor can take. 33 control areas, a whole bunch of control objectives underneath it. Does your cybersecurity program have these things? And it goes from not implemented all the way up to fully implemented. And the idea is not to say, it's not an audit per se that you got to fix these things, but to identify things that may be of risk to the organization, okay, on a macro level, not on a micro level, right? So it's a self-assessment. It allows not only the organization to identify where they may need to invest resources, but it also allows us in the NJ KIC to identify where we can help. What more can we be doing? What are we missing that, so it's more of this helps us help you. It's aligned with the statewide information security manual. So back in March of this year, we launched the statewide information security manual. The premise behind it, it was to be the policies and standards for the executive branch of the state of New Jersey. But when we started writing it, we didn't want something that said thou shalt not and thou shall and like all these other policies, but we wanted a best practices guide. If you do this stuff that we have in here, you're going to manage your risk effectively. You're going to do the due care, the due diligence, and all those things that are reasonable and comprehensive in a cybersecurity program. It's online. You're welcome to read it. You're welcome to copy it. You're welcome to change state or executive branch to whatever your organization is. And we've had a number of organizations do that as well. Writing policies, maybe if you guys are auditors, you like that, but it's kind of boring. And then reading policies is boring too. So this is a resource that's up there for you. Going back to the controls assessment, it's pretty simple. And I know you can't read that in the back. I'll try and read it from here. So 1.0, okay, a control area. Do you have information security program management? The organization establishes and maintains a framework to provide assurance that information security strategies are aligned with and support the business objectives, are consistent with applicable laws, regulations through adherence to policies and internal controls, and provide assignment of responsibility, all in an effort to manage risk. There was nothing technical about that. These are common sense type things. So 1.1, do you have somebody who's responsible for cybersecurity leadership? Do you have a management structure, right? Who do you go to? So if you check no, well, that's an area that you may want to bring up with the mayor and the council and everybody else, at that level. We need to assign somebody to that, okay? 1.2, do you have policies and standards, okay? Do you have some? Do you have a lot of them? Do you have a full set of policies and standards? So this isn't real technical. This doesn't have to go necessarily to an IT person to fill this out. This can go to auditors. This can go to the chief financial officers to work with the various departments within your organization. 4.0, security awareness and training. We talked about phishing. Do you have a security awareness and training program? Is it continuous, meaning not only when you get hired do you have to take it, but on an annual basis do you get updated with this type of stuff? Okay. Do you have training records that will document that Mike Geraghty went through the training and passed training this year? These are all these good practices that you want to have. So we wanted to put this out there, and it's pretty extensive, all the different questions that we have, to make people think, to make organizations think, do we do this? This is something that we've got to address later on, and those types of things. We get into network security. So I said there's 33 control areas. Network security is control area 20. There's all sorts of control objectives underneath it. Simple. Do you deny access to your network by default, okay, and allow by exception? So think of this in another way. Forget the network and forget technology. Do you leave your front doors open, okay, not just unlocked, but open, allowing everybody in, okay? Or do you lock the front door and only allow people in that you trust? Right? That's really what, firewall management is. When I came to the state, we had firewalls that were wide open, which means anybody can come into the network. We've since changed that, but these are the reasons that these questions are in there, not just to have questions, but, control areas that are relevant. Ask your cybersecurity person, ask your IT person, your network administrator, does our firewall deny by default? Or does it allow everybody in? Network segmentation. So we just did an incident response with an organization, a government organization up north, and they got hit by a virus, and that virus spread across the entire government organization, all the different departments, which means all the different departments couldn't function, and they're still not fully functional, a month or so later. So network segmentation is kind of like in the buildings that you work in. Do you have offices that you can lock so nobody can get access to your files? Instead of just having everything wide open that everybody can access. So we segment networks based on functionality so that those that deal with money are going to be segmented from those that have more, allowed more risk and those types of things. So network segmentation is another. And these, like I said, they're not technical. They're more common sense, layman type questions that anybody can answer or ask, and pretty much anyone can understand. Internet of Things. How many have an Internet of Things security policy? How many have a smartphone? Okay. How many have a smart TV? Smart doorbells, smart thermostats, smart everything. You cannot buy a TV anymore that's not a smart TV. At least I don't think you can. All right. So when you have conference rooms set up, or you buy these things and you install them on networks in your organizations, or even at home, are they connected directly into your network? Okay. Do you have an inventory of all the smart things that all the different departments have bought and are now connecting into your network, whether they be heating and air conditioning systems, whether they be vehicles that can connect? I don't know if you got a new vehicle that has all sorts of intelligence in it, you can't tailgate people anymore. Did anybody have those types of vehicles? Yeah, it's not good. And it just goes against everything in New Jersey. But you can turn that off if you want. But not only that, if you sync your phone with the in-dash entertainment system, not only are all your music files going there, but so too does your email. And so too do your text messages. And so unbeknownst to a lot of people, when they trade in their cars or they give them to somebody else, that information can be downloaded by any bad actor that wants it. So, operational security as well of these types of things. Secure configuration. All of these Internet of Things devices come with default passwords. Do you change the default passwords on them? And I can say, no, you don't, because we do those scans of the state of New Jersey, and I can tell you all the different devices that are connected to the public internet that either have admin as a password, admin password as a password, or admin1234 as the password. All those default passwords. We've got elevators and the cameras in elevators at universities in New Jersey that have that. We've got traffic cams that have that. So all sorts of issues that we've got with that. So last one, physical and environmental security, because physical security is part of cybersecurity as well. Do you have security zones where the public is not allowed to go, that you have sensitive materials? Is that partitioned off from other parts? Do you have physical access authorization, such as a badge or a key or something like that, where you're authorized to do that? So these questions go through all these different types of areas. As I said, 33 in total, including incident response. We'll make it available tomorrow to the water sector. This will be available to others. This could be something that you use for self-assessment. You don't have to return it to us. You can use it yourselves. If you want to return it to us, then we'll be able to identify how we can help and provide some sort of services to you. So last thing I'm going to hit you with but before we break, smart cities. every mayor, every council person, every government official thinks about smart cities, on all the opportunities that we have there. And we talked about all those smartphones and everything like that. There are going to be innovation hubs here in New Jersey. And the rush to have a smart city, because of all the conveniences that it provides, is outpacing our ability to secure things. We've got people opening up emails that have phishing content. We've got no antivirus on county networks, an entire county network without antivirus. And yet we're going to take that leap into smart cities, and depending on those people that can't secure our own networks to secure those networks. So what's going to happen is when everything's connected, there are going to be blackouts in cities. Traffic lights are going to be red. We think of this all the time. This is part of our job in Homeland Security. If we were to have a hurricane like Florence that hit down south, hit Atlantic City today, there's an evacuation route. But with those traffic lights that are connected to the internet, somebody can hack into them and make them red. Now you have mass gridlock, and now you probably have mass casualties or all sorts of other issues. So these things, as we connect, we have to think about the risk, not just the rewards of what's happening here. So as you go through this, just some things to think about. I know, in my talk, I didn't solve all your problems and probably created a whole bunch more for you by making you think. So with that, if you do have questions, there's our email address, our phone number. You can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, not Ashley Madison, or via our website, cyber.nj.gov. Thanks for having me, and I'll be around.